And so what prioritization means is really taking Pareto's principle, the 80-20 principle, and applying it. So 20% of the tasks will yield 80% of the results. When you know that, then what happens is you start sort of grading the task or evaluating the tasks in a quantified way. So here's a simple way to think about it. Some tasks are worth a penny, some are worth a nickel, some are worth a dime, some are worth, a quarter, some are worth $1. The problem is that we love doing the penny, the nickel tasks because they're easy, they're low hanging, it doesn't require too much of our brain, and we feel a sense of accomplishment. But most of the times, those things don't actually move the needle forward in our jobs, in our lives. And so you want to do fewer tasks, but you want to do the tasks that have the most amount of impact or leverage.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? Dr. Vikram Raya is a functional cardiologist, high-performance coach, and real estate expert, is here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life, unlock your limitless potential, and achieve greatness, all while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in.
One of the most common questions I get from my coaching clients, and this is actually something I am dealing with personally in one of my companies, is what do you do when an employee underperforms? And the first thing that comes to mind is don't hire a person who can underperform. Try to hire A players. And we have a very specific methodology in this, and I've done a couple of videos about hiring, top-notch talent. But really, in quick summary, it's knowing exactly what you want, having a distinct one-page job summary of roles and responsibilities that's, sent out broadly, LinkedIn, Indeed, some of the other platforms out there. You get a ton of interest. You make them jump through a couple of different hoops with, hey, please send me a cover letter specific to why you think it'd be great for you to work at, fill in the blank, Limitless MD, Viking Capital, etc. Then you invite the people who respond, which is probably 20-30% of a group of 100 or 1,000 applicants, to do a DISC score, DISC score. And based on the role you're hiring, do they need to be more conscientious, more detail-oriented? Do they have to be more a go-getter, more directive? Do they have to be very extroverted and talking and relationship building? Depending on that score, you have a profile you're looking for. After they meet that criteria, then you follow the Who methodology book by G.H. Street, which is a great book, and it's one of the top books on hiring, and it takes you through a 3 to 5 step interview process. And if you can just read the book or listen to my previous videos on it, but as you go through the process, finally, you start emerging 3 to 5 candidates that are really amazing. And after you make the decision, one of the most powerful questions you can ask in the reference interview is, hey, would you enthusiastically rehire this person? So the person I'm going to talk about today passed with flying colors through all of these things. They had 7 rounds of interviews. The DISC score was on point. The reference interview was amazing, but still the person after about 90 days was not where they should be. And you have a couple options here. You coach them up or you coach them out, right? Or you ignore the situation, which many companies do because it's such a pain to hire and they don't want to go through that whole process again. So before you coach someone out, you have to give them the opportunity to coach them up. And so if a lot of the times I look at the 4 A's and make sure I did not make a mistake in hiring the person. So as a refresher, the 4 A's are attitude, aptitude, ambition, and appearance. And overall, this person seemed to have everything. And so I'm like, all right, there's an opportunity here to level this person up. So what you need to do is identify and diagnose and the problem so you can solve it. The problem here was the person was ready to do the job, was excited to do the job, was capable, but they were using their previous skill sets from their previous employer and assumed those skill sets were enough to sustain them in this new position. And that was a fallacy in thinking. So once we all came to that realization and we shared that with the team member's like, okay, I get it. Then a lot of times volume trumps friction. So if you can just double or triple the number of hours uh, until you can catch up via skill sets to your current position, that may be enough. And so what I did with this team member was I was telling him, I need you to put in at least 60 to 70 hours a week until we get back on track. Then we did twice a day check-ins where I would check in with the person in the morning and then I would check in with the person in the evening. Then I taught them a strategy called RPM. RPM stands for Results Focused, Purpose Driven Massive Action Plan. And so, really, instead of them becoming task or action oriented, I made them outcomes or results oriented. And that shift in thinking got them to be much more efficient and effective. So they would capture everything anyone told them to do, and then they'd be able to capture digitally. And so there is either Asana or Trello or even on your phone, in a section. So beginner level of this strategy is just capturing on one big list, and everything goes there. A more advanced version of the strategy is you start making categories. So this person was a director of operations, and so they would have a finance section, an HR admin section, a distribution section, a asset management acquisition section. So this person was really involved in multiple departments as the operations person. So they had multiple tasks across the disciplines. And so we made these little categories in Asana, which is a project management tool that's for free, anyone can use. And I made three main categories, sort of a capture list, just to capture ideas, a in progress list, and then a completed list. So what you can do is you just drag, the item from one column to the second column to the third column, and you're almost like going across a progress map or a journey map for that task. But the goal really is he or she needs to understand, hey, what are the top 7 to 10 things that need to happen this week for this company to be successful? What are the outcomes? And then what are the tasks associated with those outcomes? And so we went into depth where they really started prioritizing the right things. Look, typically any employee gets sent between 20 to 100 items to do that week. And a lot of employees or team members get overwhelmed. And the reason why they get overwhelmed is they haven't mastered the art of prioritization. And so what prioritization means is really taking Pareto's principle, the 80-20 principle, and applying it. So 20% of the tasks will yield 80% of the results. When you know that, then what happens is you start sort of grading the task or evaluating the tasks in a quantified way. So here's a simple way to think about it. Some tasks are worth a penny, some are worth a nickel, some are worth a dime, some are worth a quarter, some are worth $1. The problem is that we love doing the penny, the nickel tasks because they're easy, they're low hanging, it doesn't require too much of our brain, and we feel a sense of accomplishment. But most of the times, those things don't actually move the needle forward in our jobs and our lives. And so you want to do fewer tasks, but you want to do the tasks that have the most amount of impact or leverage. So that's some of the other things that we taught this team member employee. So we said, hey, ignore, like, we're all going to procrastinate, right? But use procrastination wisely. So learn to procrastinate on low value tasks. And so now he has a clarity on how to prioritize tasks. He has a system in which to capture everything. The beginner step was just capturing everything in a generic, category. But the more sophisticated people learn to categorize into the 5 to 7 to 10 main categories in your job or even in your professional life, and put things in those categories so they're already pre-chunked out, if you will, and then prioritize them in terms of what's most important versus least important, and then go after those most important tasks and finish the task before you go and do another task. And so accountability, productivity, transparency, motivation, coaching, right? These are all the things that we poured into this team member. And now we're starting to see the results of that, where they now understand it, they get it, and they're really excited to keep excelling and moving forward. So remember, when most team members go to their limits, either they can collapse or they can become masters of these things, and then their limits expand. And that's what we're really doing. The second option, where we're helping folks really expand their limits. So, the question becomes, hey, is everyone coachable? Or do you need to cut your losses and let them go? And I think my answer is, hiring is not easy and it takes a lot of energy and time. And so your first instinct should be to try to coach someone up. And if you did the criteria I was talking about in terms of a very thorough hiring and vetting process, then most of the people that are going to come through your system or your company or your organization probably have all the stuff needed to be successful. So then it could be just more tactics and strategies and motivation and techniques, right? But the way to know if you have an A player is, in my experience, it's been that within 1 to 2 weeks of them hiring someone like this, it makes a positive impact on your organization, and you feel it. You feel a deep sigh of relief. You wonder how you were able to handle this company without them, and they really have a huge impact from literally from day one. That being said, there's people who what we call A potentials, or sort of what we call climbers. They come in your organization, they have the team culture, they have some core competencies, but not maybe all the competencies, and you pour into them. So there are some people in our company who, when I hired them, they were one level of one skill set, and now I can't believe where they are in my company because they've just excelled, they've grown, they've prospered, they've keep learning. Constant, never-ending improvement. They're relentless in their mindset, and they're just going to figure it out. And a lot of people respond well to coaching, constructive criticism, feedback. And so one of the jobs as a leader in your company is to grow more leaders. And so that is super important. And I've learned that over the years, where it's not just good enough to like coach them and train them and get them to do what you want. You want them to eventually lead themselves, then they can lead others. So yeah, I really think most people deserve a shot. And I would say, a quick and dirty way is make sure they have the 4 A's, attitude, aptitude, ambition, appearance. And if I could add a fifth A, it'd be authenticity. They're not trying to fake it. They're trying to genuinely be who they are, and they're embracing their own skills, and then their weaknesses, they've learned to either work on it, delegate it, compensate it, create other strategies around it so it doesn't, hold them back. And the goal is for each person in their company to find their zone of genius. And when you do that, you have a team of geniuses then. So the question sometimes I have clients ask me is, hey, I'm a small company. How do I have the bandwidth to coach somebody? And there are also people who are really big companies. Hey, it's probably easier and cheaper for us to just move on than to just coach someone up. I think the answer is sort of customized, is based on really your own preference. But for example, Limitless MD is a coaching company, and so it'd be interesting when we don't coach our own team members, for excellence, right? So you probably want to coach people, but it's also part of the culture, right? Our culture is help first mindset. Our culture is teamwork, camaraderie. It's we instead of I. It's all of us getting to the top, and we don't even use the word employee. I like the word team member. I like the word and there's less hierarchy in my organizations, and so it's really because I really want people to succeed. I want them to feel they're part of a team, and there's like an ongoing culture. So I also think about, if I was in that position, what would I want? And I'd want someone to give me a shot. I want someone to push me, to encourage me, to help me get to that next level. And every level has its own devil, and so if you can help them overcome that, they're going to be so much more gung ho about your company, about your organization, about the mission. And to be honest with you, what we're trying to do is convert people from being mercenaries in our companies to being missionaries. And that shift in thinking is what creates amazing culture. I'll give you an example. Zappos, the company that Amazon bought, a couple of years ago, it's an amazing shoe company, and their culture is so strong that people love working there, and they're given license to their employees to where you do everything you can to make the the customer happy. And so one time a customer called and said, "Hey, I love buying your shoes. Oh, by the way, guys, I'm super hungry, and there's all the pizza places have closed down. Any ideas?" And so the team member took it upon himself to figure out a late night pizza place that still was able to deliver and had the pizza delivered to the customer. What do you think that customers? Do you think that customers going to buy shoes from anywhere else? Same thing happened with Wynn, the casino owner, Steve Wynn. He had his casinos Wynn, and they're given like a stipend of, I think, a couple of $100 to do anything they need to do to help a customer or a customer or client. And I think a customer left their insulin syringes at home, and they had to leave the casino early because they didn't have their insulin. And this employee drove out all the way to their home, brought the insulin back, in a refrigerated cooler, so the customer could have a longer stay at the casino. So these are just examples of that extraordinary white glove service, that unreasonable hospitality. There's a book by Will Guidara, and he really talks about like how his restaurant in New York City, just went above and beyond, and it talks about how you can create that culture in a lot of companies. And that's something that your goal is to create raving fan customers and clients. And I think doing these kind of things help, but by creating raving fan employees, everything just becomes more infectious, and there's an enthusiasm for your company, and it really becomes more of a movement. So I hope this sort of helped and gave you the thought process of how we try to coach team members up who are underperforming and make them become A players again. And I would love to know in the thoughts or comments, what your strategies are. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below, or simply visit vikramraya.com. Until next time, be phenomenal.